Bam, we're back. Welcome everybody to another episode of The Awakening Self. My name is Aaron Fisher. Today's guest is Nathasya. Before we begin, let me read a little bit about Nathasya for you. So, Nathasya is a holistic trauma coach and therapist. At rock bottom, she found her calling to do the work of helping others recover from their past traumas, which led her to her healing journey. And now, after going through her own personal experience of abuse and trauma, she is now guiding others on how to get unstuck, release, and recover from their past trauma naturally through holistic methods so they can thrive in all aspects of their lives. With a background in clinical hypnotherapy, neurolinguistics, somatic therapy, Sattva Himalayan Kundalini Yoga, Reiki and Coaching, she coaches clients around the world, holds private healing sessions, and leads transformative workshops worldwide. So that is just a little bit about her, and let's... Yo.
Hello.
Yeah, dude, I'm every time I read this yoga name, I feel so bad because because I want to say sativa, but it's not sativa. So, and last time I had a guest on, I said it, and I'm just like, mm. I'm like, he's not happy with me. I know he's not happy with me. So how do you pronounce it?
Sattva.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I
Yeah.
got the Kundalini part right.
Yeah, that's okay. Don't worry about it. At the
But
beginning,
it's
I also didn't know how to pronounce it.
no, but it's cool. I met you when I was actually in Barcelona, which was an amazing experience with everybody there in your office and what you guys were doing. And I still remember that I think on the second day they gave me like these like magical like power balls, and I'm like,
Ah, yes, those energy balls.
yeah, who knows that I like these? And it's just like it was this lady. I'm like, I need to meet her. And then I met you. I'm like, you're amazing. I'm like, I want to know more about you. So I'm really happy that we're able to have you on this episode and for you to share your story, share about yourself, and for more people to know how absolutely incredible you are.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
welcome. So we begin. So I read a little bit about your bio. Tell me, well, tell us about your story with the beginning and, kind of what led you to on this path.
Yeah, all right. So first, thank you so much for having me and for introducing me also, and for all of the work that you've been doing as well and sharing on your channel.
Oh,
So
thank
I'm
you.
honored to be here. Start about me. All right. So what led me to where I am now? I mean, as you mentioned, like at rock bottom, I kind of found myself. Like, I think that's the story for everyone, right? Um, so since I was a kid, I've always felt that there's something bigger than me. I've always felt very sensitive and very connected to people and people mostly. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like everything. I could feel everything. But then, of course, growing up, I think all of that became dormant when you have others deciding things for you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to do this, you better go to this school, and that, and that, and that. And so I kind of like, okay, that kind of like painted a picture of life for me. And I thought, okay, that's the way that it had to be. And then, of course, along the way, when I was 7 to 8 years old, I'm going to be like completely blunt about this because I'm very open to sharing it. Maybe like 6 years ago, I wouldn't be able to share this.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 7 to 8 years old, I was raped by, well, I'm not going to say any names, but yeah, I was raped. And that took basically my innocence away, as a young girl that I was. And then, yeah, growing up, it was very hard. And I always kind of thought, okay, it never happened. It never happened. And then after that, a lot of other things happened in my life. Like, from getting bullied in school. Like I was bullied everywhere I go, and I didn't understand why. I was like, why am I getting bullied everywhere? Like I'm not doing anything. Like I always try to just be behind and kind of like be an observer rather like being the center of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then also after that, I grew up in a very toxic household. So all of that was very challenging for me. But of course, again, I didn't want to admit it until I had my first Reiki session, actually. and at first I was like, okay, let's just do this. Let's see. Then I started to cry, and everything came out. All of those memories came to surface, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I think no one can know what they should do, when all of those things came to surface. And that's where I start my healing journey. And yeah, it was just very, very difficult. But I feel like I couldn't hide it anymore, because this type of pain will consume you, if you let it suppress your emotions. And that's really like my message for a lot of people. Like I hope by sharing more of my story, and you also sharing other people's stories, it will help people to open up more and not suppress their emotions, because it's so necessary. Like you don't have to talk about it like in public to everyone, like what we're doing now, but if they trust someone, it's so necessary that we just open up. But yeah, what else is there? Ask me questions. So,
Well, I think it's yeah, through sharing stories, it kind of helps people recognize that their story is okay, that they have permission, that they're not alone, that they're able to, that there's more individuals in the world that they can connect with. So where were you originally born?
Yeah, so I'm from Indonesia. It's Rose gonna mention that. I'm from Indonesia, but now I live in Barcelona, and I love it here.
So tell me about the journey from Indonesia. So from Indonesia to Barcelona, coming from one culture, moving into another culture.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, and another question was Barcelona like the first place that you moved to, or did you travel to a few other places before calling Barcelona your home?
Actually, when my mom remarried with my stepdad at that time, he's American. And so that was already a big culture change. And then we moved to Angola. And Angola is another like big culture change at that time, because it was still like kind of war going on. And so there would be like shootings outside and all of these things. And that was really tough. And so I can totally say that I have seen it. I have really seen life, like how it's like, seeing the poor, like really, really poor, and people who are really well off, let's say, with their life. And my English was not good at all at the time. And I think that's what kind of like divided me from a lot of people, and why I was bullied a lot, because I've always been different. Like even now, living in Barcelona, I don't know a lot of Indonesians, none that are like my age. And so it's really hard for me. It's really hard for me to connect with others. I mean, though I don't really see people like with their appearances. Like I don't really need to hang out with people who are my color, my race, all of these things. It doesn't matter to me. But I feel like a lot of people are like that, and they just connect better with people who speak their language. So, and then after, when I moved to Angola, that was when I was 10 years old. And then we moved back to Indonesia. And then after that, I started going to university in Florida, in the US. Yeah. That was a big change because I've been to the US before, but for vacations. You know, it's not the same to really live there and absorbing all of that culture and lifestyle. And then after I moved to Madrid, that's when I would say I hit rock bottom there. I hit rock bottom in Madrid, like when everything opened up, and I went to the hospital. Like I was charged in hospital a lot because I attempted suicide because it was just too painful for me. I really didn't know what to do, and I was alone. I felt that I was like no family or close friends there in a city that I don't speak the language. And so my parents were like, okay, come back home to Indonesia. And when I went back home to Indonesia, I traveled to Bali alone, and just because I'm originally from Jakarta. And so I went to Bali alone, and that's when I really just like, okay, let's see all of these different holistic therapists and start to learn meditation, all of these things, which really, really helped me a lot. Like meditation was the biggest thing. I think perhaps maybe for a lot of people, because I know some people who kind of doubt meditation, like, oh, really? You can really do that? I was also like that, you know, in the beginning. So I just tried it out, you know, just trying out 5 minutes per day, every morning when I wake up. Like, and you don't have to be like in front of an altar or this nice space. I was literally just on my bed, just close my eyes, you know, and I start to cry a lot. And then it got easier over time. And journaling also helped me. So just starting small with that. Yeah.
It's interesting. Everybody has their own rock bottom situation and story. I know I've hit rock bottom. I know I was suicidal at some point as well. Like it happens, but I'm still here. You're still here, and it's kind of amazing. But see, when you were moving towards rock bottom, like, were there signs? What made you like, what nowadays, now that you look back at it, what made you know that it was rock bottom? What made you know that you were in a difficult time in your life, and why did you feel it was so difficult?
Yeah, I saw everything dark. Actually, when I was seeing a psychologist at that time, and she was saying, you don't see any gray. You only saw like the darkness. And when she said that, I was like, that's true. That's true. And it was really difficult for me to find appreciation in little things. I guess this is also why gratitude works, you know, when you list the things of that you're grateful of in the morning. That works. That helped me a lot. Like, oh, it's a beautiful sky, all of these things. But yeah, at that moment, I knew that what made me feel like it was rock bottom, I didn't want to keep on going anymore. And yeah, literally everything just went dark. That's what it felt like. Yeah, like someone switched off the lights, and I didn't feel like I couldn't feel anything. That's it. I couldn't feel anything. I mean, of course, I was crying a lot and I felt a lot of pain, but other than that, it was hard for me to really experience the joy in other things. Do you understand what I mean?
I understand.
Yeah, yeah. And it felt like everyone was against you, and yeah, you kind of just lose your purpose. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, why am I still alive? That's the whole reason behind all of these things. And that's also why I guess a lot of people, why purpose is so important. You know, once you kind of feel like, oh, that's my purpose here on earth, it moves you, it keeps you going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times when it comes to those moments, it's just like, you know, I know thoughts that I had in my head when I was there. It's like, does the world actually need me? Like, do I actually need to be here? Would I actually be missed? Like, what am I actually doing other than taking up space? You know, it's like this kind of talk,
Exactly.
self-talk and dialogue, and then realizing that like, and it's almost like you're creating this self-fulfilling prophecy that you're creating a way to see this reality within the reality, where it's like I would prove to myself that I didn't matter by being out there, but that wasn't the truth. That's what I was just trying to prove to myself, something to make myself feel a certain way. And then later on in life, you can do the opposite of being like, people like me, I'm great. And then like prove to yourself that you're actually that kind of individual. But, you know, growing up, nobody gives you a manual of this is life. You're going to feel sad. When you feel sad, this is what should happen.
Exactly.
I never got that one.
Exactly. Yeah, and I was talking about that the other day with actually one of my clients, and we were saying like, this is what schools should teach about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was saying in the beginning, when people kind of paint these pictures of life to you, for me, the idea of life at the beginning, when people were telling me all these things, like, okay, I guess it's just to make money. That's it, right? Make money, work, and then 20 days out of 365 days, you enjoy life. Just 20 days. That sounded depressing, but I was like, okay, I guess that's it. And until I discovered, obviously, it's not that. You know, there's something
No, but
else
it's
more.
sold to us like that when we're kids. It's packaged like that when it's kids. It's packaged like grow up, job, house, husband, wife, kids, work hard, retire,
Exactly.
die. And it's just like, I don't feel like that's right. You know, that's why I moved to China at the age of like 22, because I'm like, I don't know who I am and I need to marry somebody and be with them for maybe 58 years. I'm like, who's making up these rules? I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, I'm going to a country that doesn't make sense to me. So I jumped to China and I'm like, all right, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's the idea of that's how it was for a generation, but it's not how it is for the generations. Our
Yeah.
generation gets to choose, and we always get to choose. So after you've hit that point, you know, you hit rock bottom, then you saw the therapist, that you went to Bali, you saw a therapist, like how did you know, like, how did you know that there was a change? How did you know that there was a shift? Like I'm the better way to say this is describe this process of going from rock bottom and seeing darkness to where you are and talking about light and love and compassion.
Yeah. So it was honestly the last time that I attempted to end my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna go into details, but just the message that came through to me when at that moment I was alone and, you know, like attempted suicide, and then I heard a message, a voice. You can call it whatever it is that you want to believe. You don't need to like believe in a religion if whoever's listening to this is not, doesn't matter. But
Mm-hmm.
perhaps it was also my inner voice, you know, my higher self, let's say. But it was telling me like, this is not, it's not time for you yet.
Mm.
Like you have a bigger purpose. You need to help others. And I was really crying on the floor, and I was like, no, 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 no. Like, why? I don't know how to do that. I just want to end my life. Like, no, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And then the voice was like, yes, yes, you can. Keep going. Heal yourself first, and then help others
Mm.
from the things that probably similar as yours. You know, I went through that trauma, and So now I'm helping others to overcome their trauma. But yeah, it was really difficult for me to grasp, to believe, to really listen to that voice. But now thinking back always to that moment is what helps me to keep on going with my life. Because as I told you, purpose moves you, and to me it feels like this is my purpose. Yeah. And so after that, I really started more. That was when I was in Indonesia, after that time in Madrid. And then after that, through more practicing meditation and reading several personal development books, I think we all have. And
Oh
just
yeah.
really talking to people, sharing, like listening to other people's stories. This is why, like, you know, what you're doing is great, because like these kind of things helped me. Back then, when I was going through this journey, like Instagram was not that evolved yet. And so, but yeah, just meeting people, like strangers, and they were sharing with me their deepest scars, their stories. And I was touched, and I was like, okay, I'm not alone. I really thought it was just all me. I mean, I know there are other people, like when you see the news, you know, there's so many people suffering. But what I had, I guess it was a lot of emotional pain. And yeah, when I hear all of these other stories, and to have those people really in front of me and telling me their story, that was just truly touching. And I was like, okay, if they can do it, I can also do it.
But when you speak about the news, it's true. The news doesn't allow us to connect in certain ways. The reason why, it's like you hear about 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people going through depression or suicidal or things like that, but we're like, our brain can't understand that. But what our brain can understand is stories of one-on-one people being like, this is me, this is my story, this has been my life. And you're like, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
There's other people that are going through this. And then you start to see that connection. That's why, you know, there's so many books out there, because there's so many stories, and there's so many stories that we need in our life. And when you start to realize that, like, it's funny because when you had that idea of just like, why me? Like, I can't do this. This is not me. This is not what I'm supposed to do. It's like, yeah, it's scary. Like, most people are like, it's like one of my favorite poems or quotes, which is like, it's not the darkness that scares us, it's our light. Because sometimes when we discover that we have light and that we have a purpose, then we question our worth, our value, who we are. I can't do this. It's not for me. I'm nobody special.
Yes.
It's the same thing that happens, but...
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
It's the same pattern that happens with us. And then eventually we meet one person. And then we meet another. And then we meet another. And then all of a sudden it's just like, I'm not special. I'm actually like everybody else. And that makes me special. The fact that I have my stories and I have my scars that don't look like everybody's, but they are slightly similar, helps us actually come together. That, you know, there's more to who I am and what I went through than I could ever imagine. And that's where some of the power really comes into. So when you started to see these, you know, the therapists, and you started to go into Bali and to go through the process, like, what helped you? What, like, when you were there, what kind of therapy helped you? How did it help you? And yeah, we'll start with that.
Oh my gosh, I did everything. I didn't just like try one, but I think that's why it was also exhausting also for me. I wished there was like one person that I can just go to and you know, have all of these different tools. But yeah, I tried everything. I tried tapping, meditation, and then yeah, honestly, just everything, like crystal healing, you know, to Why not? You know, when you're desperate, I was like, why not? Why not? Let's just try. I'm open to literally anything and everything. But I was on medications at that time, and actually, after doing all of these things, it helped me to stop the medications. Actually, my mom was telling me, like, stop taking your medicines. I was like, oh no, you know, maybe I should keep on. I didn't want to take medicines at the beginning, but then my psychiatrist at the time was like, oh, you should take them because blah blah blah, and I was like, okay. But then another biggest change that I made that really created a big impact was my food, my nutrition. I wouldn't say I was eating really bad before, but like I would eat my vegetables. I love vegetables and fruits, but it was still quite bad. Like as an Indonesian, we grew up with instant noodles. And that has a lot of MSG and all of these things. I was not educated about these things. They were in supermarkets, they sell them, so we must think that they're safe, right?
Yeah.
But they're not. And they actually discovered, you know, after studying all of these things, I discovered how they can also impact your emotional health. And I really saw that. I saw how it impacted me. I mean, of course, with my trauma not yet released at that time, it didn't help. But yeah, with the food, it also like didn't help my emotional and mental health. Yeah.
I fully agree. It's like you guys had instant noodle. We had instant noodle too, but we also had TV dinners and like all this
Oh, yes.
microwavable stuff, and you know,
Yes.
we had like deep fryers and food that goes through these processes. It's almost like they're not really touched by hands. They're not touched by love. So when they go into your system doesn't know how to react to it, which can cause a lot of depression, can cause a lot of anxiety, can cause a lot of problems within your life.
Yeah.
Food is medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have the prana, the life force energy in it. Yeah, food is really medicine. Like I
So
turn into that. I turn to like herbs and stuff now. Like now whenever I'm sick, I'm just like checking in, like how is my emotional health? What have I been drinking, like enough water? What did I eat in the last like few hours? You know, all of these things. Like I really do like keep in check, and then I turn into like my essential oils. They help. They really do help greatly. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's checking in with yourself, and I like that because it's very important. It's like, well, I'm feeling like this. What did I eat today? What did I drink today? You know, maybe it's a sign of something's not good in my body. Maybe it's a sign that I should change up something in my diet because they really do play a role. Like there's that saying that you are what you eat. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can affect you.
Yes.
So going back
Yes.
to your story, would you say like what would you say was one of your awakening moments that you know you felt as if like you're like oh shit you know things kind of altered and changed for you in a different way.
Yeah. So for regarding awakening moment, I feel that there's not just one. You
Hmm.
know, a lot of people they be like, "Oh, I am awakened," and that's it, and that's it. No, no, you can have several ones throughout your life,
And you
and
could also
as
have naps as well.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Love naps. So yeah, I had, I think the first one that I had was when I was, you know, at that rock bottom.
Hmm.
What happened to me in Madrid. And yeah, even during this awakening moment, as I said, it's not as pretty. It can be like, oh shit. Sorry, my French. But yeah, that's what happened. That's the first one. And then actually, the another one, the really big one, was not too long ago, last year, when I went to India in April, and that was another big one. I wouldn't say that was my second one. I think I had other ones before that. Although this other one in India that I had was, the most impactful one for me. And that's when I went for my yoga teacher training, when I learned the Sattva Himalayan Kundalini. And I shed a lot of layers that I didn't know was still there. I mean, obviously we all always have like this part of us that's there, our shadow. Our shadow is always living with us. Like we're co-living with them, but as long as you accept it, right, and you become aware of it and not just like, I don't want to get to know you. But yeah, so when I was in India, new things came up and I shared more things, and I would say that was my my next big awakening moment.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Awakening moments, like somehow social media has made awakening moments seem like you're like, oh, you're awakened, and then your hair just flows beautifully, and like you have this light that comes around you, and you're like walking on water, where it's just like, no, it's like your hair's actually falling out, and
Exactly.
somebody turned off the light, and you feel like you're actually drowning in like a puddle. It's just like, it's a little different. It's almost like,
puddle of
whoa.
your tears and snot.
Yeah, like you're like, you're not like, oh, I'm so beautiful in my snot tear puddle. It's like, listen, everybody has this own kind of awakening moment, but it's not like, I am awoken, I know everything, nothing bothers me anymore. You're like, whoa, things are different now. Like I see things different now. And then it gets to the point where it's just like what we're saying. It's like, oh, I have awakening moments. Awakening, not I am woken. It's like, it's like, no, I'm awakening. Like, and then I'm still awakening. I'm like, this is a lot of awakening. I think I need to take a nap. I'm gonna nap for a little bit. And then you wake up, you're like, oh, I'm still awakening. I'm like, but I needed that nap. And then you move forward with it.
Exactly. This is a lifetime journey. It's what I always tell people. It's a lifetime journey. You don't just like attend a week retreat and then that's it, all your problems will go away, or take a program and that's it. No, I mean, you might feel good after, which is great. It means that, something is changing, but it doesn't just end there. It's every day is constant practice, and that's what people forget. I think we're so used to like, taking that medicine. If you have a headache, taking the ibuprofen and then your headache goes away. That's what people want also with dealing with your trauma or emotional wound. They want to just like, I want to see a therapist and everything will go away. Like with that magic wand to me, and please get rid of my pain and trauma. But it's not like that. It's an everyday work. I mean, you are going to learn the tools and practices from therapists or coaches, whatever, from them. That's why the tools and practices are so important, because you learn them and then you can always come back to them as new challenges come to your life. But, every day. And every day you're growing as well. There's that growing pains, right, as you're growing.
It's true. A lot of times we want to numb the pain. We want not to feel the pain. When I was growing up, I had a lot of friends that were, they would come out of rehab, or they would come out of AA, or I had friends that were suicidal that ended up killing themselves. And the reason why was because they're in this group, and in this group, they're like, there's a support. They feel comfortable. They feel like they've healed. And then they go back in society, and then they have to deal with all the problems again, because you're not in a close place anymore. And then they would think in their minds, I failed. I can't do this. I can't achieve anything in life. And then some would relapse and go back into alcohol. Some would commit suicide. Some would find a different way. So when my question for you, be with your expertise, well, your experience in what you do, it's like if somebody is going through a situation where they're dealing with trauma, and after they have the supportive groups or they've been on a retreat, what would you say would be some of the advice you would give them, and what steps would you also tell them to take afterwards?
Okay. So first of all, if someone goes seek support, I really recommend seeking support who can also give you the right tools and practices. Because yes, support helps, but then you're going to become dependent of that therapist, coach, or whatever. And you need, as you said, you need to be able to go through life and learn how to manage your emotions, become aware, like, okay, I'm acting like this because I'm getting triggered by that, and now this is what I do when that happens. Coming back to your breath, I love doing breath work. Breath work helps a lot, and it's so easy and so simple. Like, you don't need any other thing. You don't need medicine. You don't need certain things. It's just you and your breath. That helps a lot, helps you to stay present. There are so many like different types of breath work now. And also really journaling every day. And it doesn't have to be super long. Your grammar or doesn't have to be perfect. You can say anything you want, and it really, really, really helps. And yeah, as I mentioned before, these are the 3 easy ones, I would say. Breath work, journaling, and being in silence with yourself. That could be 5 minutes, like meditation. And a lot of people are going to say, yeah, but I don't know how to meditate. Everyone knows how to meditate. Do you know how to close your eyes? Yes. But they're like, yeah, but I have a lot of noises. That's fine. If the noises come in, let them come in. It's just like when you're watching a busy street. You just watch. You don't go in the middle of the busy street and try to get yourself hit. Just listen to the noise. That's it. Listen, and try to understand what the noise is trying to tell you. See what's behind the pain right now. And my biggest advice would be compassionate with whatever that comes up with yourself. Because one day you're going to feel like you're on top of the world, and the next day you're going to feel like, why the hell am I still here, or regretting something. But be compassionate. You're just human. This is what you're supposed to feel, but coming back to love. And that's what I think our purpose is as a human. The thing about all the human experience is to feel. That's a human experience, to feel. And the real true purpose of a human is to come back to love, which is why I recommend be compassionate when these things come up. Like, okay, I feel jealous, I feel angry, but I choose to be with this emotion right now. But don't stay with it too long. Don't let that emotion or that thought consume you. You can be with it, sit with it, and try to understand. You can even name the emotion, name it like angry Amy. I don't know. I'm sorry if your name is Amy, but
Sorry, Amy.
yeah, angry Amy, and I don't know, jealous Jane, and like be with that. Okay, this is angry Amy showing up. What is it that you are trying to tell me? What is it that you want to know? What is it that you need? And hug an angry Amy. Imagine that you're hugging angry Amy. You can even draw of how she would look like or he would look like. And that helps. Getting to know your emotions. Yeah.
I think it's really good, and I like what you say. It's like sometimes you feel like you're on top of the world, and then sometimes you feel like the world is on top of you. It's gonna happen. It does. And with the idea of meditation, it's true. Like, don't look into what others might make it seem on a social media aspect. It's not like you close your eyes, you hold your fingers, and then all of a sudden you ascend. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
When the way I see meditation is you close your eyes and you sit there and you get comfortable in whatever position that you choose to be in. And then you sit in the cinema of your own mind, and it's gonna put on a performance, and you sit there, you eat popcorn, you're like, oh, that's really interesting. I'm like, look at that thought. I'm like, wow, I think about that. I'm like, that's crazy. And like, instead of being like, no, that's me, being like, oh, look at that performance, and like, just literally taking a step back and understanding it. And what you said as well, it's be responsive, not be reactive. Don't be like, oh, what's wrong with me? Be like, oh, interesting, compassion, love, ask questions, gauge, because it's not trying to tell you anything's wrong with you. It's trying to show you and give you signs of what you can do, what's right with you. It's supposed to teach you. It's like what you said, when anger comes in, you're not like, I'm anger. It's like walking into a classroom and seeing anger and be like, hey, anger, how you doing? It's like, hey, how you doing? It's just like, okay, what's the class for today? Well, this is the class today. Okay, great. Thank you for the lesson. You know, and
exactly.
But that, of course, it's not like, oh, now that I know this, I can do this all the time. No, it takes time. It takes time to learn this stuff.
Yeah, and wherever it is uncomfortable, it is an opportunity for you to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When it comes to the growth and the learning, and you know, everybody has their own tools. And what I like about what you said before is, you know, the right tools. So you went through so many different kinds of methods.
Yeah.
How did you know that the tools were right for you? And another question is, how would people know that the tools are right for them?
Okay. So that really differs to one person to another, right? But I really recommend looking into the body and mind, because we are an integrated system. You know, we're not just our mind, we're not just our body, we're not just that. We're everything in one. And when it comes to know which tool is right for you, I mean, you gotta try them out, I guess. Don't be afraid to try them out. Be open to learning, but of course, don't like be naive and thinking that I don't know. I cannot think of something right now, but thinking of, I don't know. You know what I mean? Just like don't be naive to it. I think the only way to know is really intuitive. Like I found all of these tools through my intuition, just listening to my heart, and then like, okay, that feels good, that doesn't feel good. I am not, it doesn't really make me grow, but that could also be your resistance, right? Not the tool itself. It could also be your resistance and not opening yourself up. So becoming aware of that. I think that's what I would say. Just really do your research and see what your heart feels attracted to, what your soul feels called to. Like the people that I work with, is because like I think that they're just like my soul aligned clients. You know, it's not like I'm forcing them like, oh, you gotta work with me. I think they just feel called, and that's also what happened to me with the other people that I have worked with, as in like my mentors as well. But obviously there were also some teachings, some people who I didn't feel fully connected with. And that's okay. That's really okay. As what we've talked about before with our emotions, how it can be good and it can be bad, you know, just like that. Again, it's fine.
It's interesting when the idea of like trusting your intuition, trusting your heart, trusting parts of your body, it takes time. And it takes time to learn it and understand what the trust is and know what is truly my heart intuition speaking, and what is past experience and prior. Exactly. So how would you be able to tell the difference, or how were you able to tell the difference from one to the other?
Oof, this is a
I
tough
know.
question.
It is. It is.
Because it's a feeling, you know? It's a feeling, and you can't put word to it. Yeah, it's a feeling. I think also, though, I would say my intuition got stronger. I wouldn't say like in the beginning, oh, my intuition is super great and that's it. No, my intuition got stronger because I have worked with my trauma. I know what are my fears. I know what things are that make me uncomfortable and my triggers. So then when that comes up, I'm like, okay, that's not my intuition speaking. That's just my fear. You know, that's my fear. And so that's what allows me to make a difference between that and understand what's coming from my intuition. Yeah.
No,
So I would work with getting to know your fears, getting to know your emotions, getting to know your shadow self, your inner demon. Oh, yeah.
good. Yeah. It's about getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
It's true though, because we can spend what I spent like 29 years with myself, and I've only spent the last 6 years getting to know myself. You know, it's just a very big difference. It's like, so growing up, like I was with it, but I wasn't knowing it. You know, I was ignoring it. I wasn't really fully embracing who I really was. It's like, I believe that the reason that we feel bad is because it's our guidance system telling us you're on the wrong path right now. Like you gotta move towards somewhere else. You know, it's like we're giving you a warning because where you currently are is not where we're supposed to be. It's not your purpose. Like move away, try to find other things. Like, but yet at the same time, it's just not like, this is what you need to do in the case of an emergency. Open up page 1 and read this passage. If this were to happen, go to page 5. If page 5 doesn't work, it doesn't work that way. Like we create our own manual as we create our own life and as we create our own experience, and we learn to become children again, to retrust ourselves.
Yes, and that's why meditation works, right? Because you get to know yourself. You get to become the observer. Yeah.
So if you go continue.
No, I was just gonna say, also that's why, you know, when you see kids, they're very creative. And that's what intuition is like too. You know, it's very colorful. It's that creativity. You don't have to be good at making sculptures and all of these things. No, that's not what I mean by creativity. But it's just like that expression, whatever it is that you want to channel it to, you know, and whatever it may be. And I think growing up, that creativity gets suppressed. And that creativity gets judged also, like when you take an art class or a music class, and they judge you like, oh, you didn't do good, you got an F on that. That makes you feel worthless, and so you start to trust less your creativity. And yeah, that's
what you say. It's like, if you look at children, and if you remember when you were a child, you would do things, but you wouldn't be like, no, this doesn't make sense. Maybe I shouldn't do this. If you actually look at a child, he's like, I'm going to do this. It's like, there's some dirt.
I'm going to draw on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to draw, until the parents are like, don't draw on the wall. And you're like, I'm not going to draw on the wall. But like, you're in a park and you're like, oh my God, look at this mud. It looks like chocolate. I put it in my mouth. Probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And then like, you're like, I'm going to run around and I'm going to do this. It's just like, you're constantly exploring yourself and your body, and you're learning, you're creating this imagination, until eventually one day we do get into schools and they're just like, no. And then I believe that's when we start to seek permission.
Yes.
And then when we get older, because we're not in these schools, we don't know how to give ourselves permission. And this is where a lot of problems can happen. But getting into that childlike state again and just kind of having fun and being like, okay, I'm going to do something that doesn't make sense today, but I'm just going to do it because it feels right. And then eventually you start to build up that intuition, because you're right. If somebody's like, well, tell me what intuition is, I'm like, I can tell you what mine is, but I can't tell you what yours is.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you'll know it when you know it, but you got to build up to it. And it takes time to go through that.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, exactly.
So before we go, there's three parts. Part one, if you could say anything to your younger self, what would you say to them?
To my younger self, you're worth it. You're worth it. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, because they're just projecting their emotions and their pains onto you. So stay authentic, and you will attract your soul tribe. You will attract whatever it is that you need in your life, you know. But know that you're always worth it, no matter if the day is dark or the day is bright. You're worth it no matter what.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Next, I just want to acknowledge you as a person for all that you do. You know, coming from young trauma as a kid, it doesn't mean that your path will look one way. It doesn't mean your path will look another way. But, you know, what I want to acknowledge is the fact that, you know, you did go through all these things in your life. You did go through all these lessons in your life, and you go through them without blaming other people. You know, you've taken them in, you've empowered yourself with them, and now you're using them to empower other women, other people in the world. And that is not easy, but it's very beautiful. And I just want to acknowledge you for what you do, for all your work, and just the individual that you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think blaming others, it will get you nowhere. That's one of the things that I learned. Nowhere. It will just create more anger within you, and then what, you know? So letting that go, you'll see that there's so many more things. So many more things. Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And blame and forgiveness and all that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah,
Oh, we
yes.
could go into that for days. And before we finish, where can people find you?
So go on my Instagram,
Hmm.
Nathasya, my name is spelled, well, I think you can see me on here, right? It's spelled really weird, like Nathasya Om. So that's where you can find me on Instagram, and then on Facebook if you are a woman, and if you're a woman and have gone through trauma or going through under a lot of things like grief, emotional pain, I created a Facebook support group
Awesome.
called Warrior Woman. And yeah, I also have a website, Wellness with akku.com.
Awesome. So I'll be making sure to put this into the link in the description for the podcast, YouTube video, and everything that we'll put these on. And once again, thank you so much for your time, for your story, and just for you being you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this amazing conversation that we're having together. It's
I loved it.
nice.
It's really.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thank you.
Natasha, once again, we'll do this
Thank
again
you.
soon.
Yes. Thank you, Erin. Bye.
Bye.